All right, guys, story time. Times are about to get hard on the boulevard. And I'll tell you what, you got to do everything you can right now to try to save a buck. And I'll tell you, I just saved $15 right now, and I'm proud of it. And I'll tell you guys how I did it. And I want to talk about Doge also, too. So first of all, let's talk about this $15 I just saved. I'm over out here in Richmond, Virginia. My storage unit is not too far away from the pickup location for the Amazon Fresh. So I do an order maybe once a week kind of a thing. And I usually don't order enough to get free delivery. So it's usually like $7, and there's usually like a $7 tip that they tip on. So it's like $14. I just looked at it today and I realized, you know what? My storage unit is only about a half a mile away from the pickup zone. And if I do the grocery pickup, I don't have to leave a tip. And at the same time, I don't have to pay the delivery fee. So let's say it's like $15. Everything else is the same price. So guess what I did today? I went ahead and did it. Now, if I'm ended up doing this once a week for the next 52 weeks of the year, that saves like $780. That's a significant amount of money that you can save, invest, put in the bank. You can probably buy 2 or 3 flat screens at Costco with that money. So that leads me to the next point which is do everything you can do to save money. Now, I've been watching this whole Doge thing happen, and I think yesterday or early this morning, they just posted all the receipts on the DOGE.gov website. And I tell you what, I spent like no less than an hour, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands. There's at least $55 billion worth of overspends and contracts that have been canceled and building leases that have been, it's all there. You can just go through it. You can see all the details behind it. And I'll tell you one thing. It's crazy because when I was looking at this stuff, it reminds me of the time when I was in my early career. And one of the things I did when I was in my early career, I worked for one of the large auditing firms to try to get my hours and get, introduced into the whole accounting world. And one of the things that we did was we were forced to, not so much forced. I mean, you sign up, get the job at the company, you try to get your hours in and all that. But depending upon who you are and your connections, they have different tiers of clients. And so the most elite people that work there, they're going to have the most elite people on their team. They're going to end up working on the clients like Google and Facebook and everybody else. And the ones that they don't necessarily target as having the biggest future with the firm, you end up doing a lot of the, for lack of a better word, crummy clients. You end up doing pawn shops, or you end up doing a lot of government work. And so at some point in my early career, I got pigeonholed into having to do a lot of the government audits, and if you end up leaving one of the big firms, you end up going to a smaller firm that's, especially if it's minority owned, a lot of the work that they do is government work, because all the large firms are required to break off a piece to the smaller firms. So that's neither here nor there. So when I worked for the large large CPA firms, I did a lot of government stuff. And when I ended up working for the smaller minority-owned firms, we did a lot of government stuff. And so one thing that impacted me significantly is that we audited the United States Postal Service. You're thinking, okay, that's government, of course, all that. Maybe it's enterprise or quasi, whatever. But what we were doing is we would actually show up on Monday at a random location, and we were like, hey, we're here to audit. And so we went all over the country, and we stopped at a lot of different places. I went to Montana, a lot of different places I never would have gone at the time of my life. So it was kind of a cool adventure. So one time we ended up in Topeka, Kansas. And this is not necessarily the geographic center of the United States, but it's pretty damn close to being in the middle if you're going to try to ship stuff to the East Coast and the West Coast. They had this material distribution center out there in Topeka, Kansas, for the United States Post Office. And so it was a huge facility. I think it was 40 plus acres. They had these ginormous buildings that just went on and on and on and on and on. And inside of these buildings, what they housed was the stuff that they shipped to the individual postal locations. And so our job was to go there and determine if what they had valued this stuff at, and if it was available, do some cursory audit work, whatever it might have been. But I'll tell you what, when we got there, I have never, ever, I was absolutely blown away. And I'll make my point here. I was blown away because they had so much stuff that was in this facility. And I'll tell you what, it was all literally just sitting there obsolete and rotting away. They had old computer equipment. They had old, just everything, and stuff that the post office had bought to be used at its locations, but in the end, it never got used. And so when you talk to the people there, it was like, well, why do you guys still have this stuff? It was like, well, you can never really get a clear answer. But, this is one of the things that I realized, and it really weighed on me a lot. And so when we went in there, we expressed an opinion. Yeah, what they're doing is fair, the treatment, blah, 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 blah. But your mind just gets blown because you see all this stuff that has been purchased that's literally just sitting there in the warehouses, as far as you can see, multiple warehouses, and it's not being used, and it will never, ever, ever be used. And you start to think to yourself, why in the world would they buy all this stuff and just let it sit? And the reason why, after me spending some time thinking about it, is that the United States government spends a lot of money to prop up the economy. And so everybody that had sold stuff to the government, that the stuff ended up in this warehouse sitting there collecting dust, literally rotting away, those people were able to receive revenue income and report that and enrich their shareholders or their owners, etc. And so meanwhile, the surplus of all this stuff was here in the warehouse and ultimately rotting away. So the taxpayers paid for it. So when I think about DOGE here and I look at all the stuff that was, and I'm not trying to be political, I'm not trying to be a pro-Trump supporter, I'm not trying to be against Trump or any of that kind of stuff at all. I'm just only talking in sense of what I saw when I was out there auditing. There is a lot of waste, and a lot of money is used to prop up the economy that the government spends. And in the end, does the stuff get used? It may or may not. And so I'll tell you, when you think of all the new media now, and you look at somebody like, one of the things I kept seeing over and over and over and over, and if the company Politico is publicly traded, they are in for, I don't think they are, but if they were, their stock is going to plummet because, so to speak, because there is so much stuff that Politico, their subscriptions, and I'm talking like multi-million-dollar ones that are through multiple agencies for different levels of subscriptions. Those things are all being canceled. And there's all types of multimedia, legacy media, things that are being canceled. There's buildings that are being leased that are being canceled. And so in the end, there's all these companies that are benefiting from the revenue that the United States government puts out. Okay, cool. That's what they do. But now that this stuff is all being canceled, it's going to have a ripple effect through the economy and anybody that works for these organizations that had these government contracts. So my only advice to you is brace for impact. Nobody's coming to save any of us at all. And at this point right now, DOGE is in no way done with what they have to do. So like I said, brace for impact. If you are working for one of these organizations that have a strong tie to the U.S. government, you receive a lot of revenue, brace for impact. Do what you can do nowadays to try to cut back as much as possible. Like I said, I just saved $15 right now by not going to have my groceries delivered. Get yourself into high gear right now and try to save as much money as you can, because like I said, nobody's coming to save any of us. And I wish you all well, and brace for impact. It's going to get worse.